A penguin spends weeks searching for the perfect pebble to give its mate. Another stands beside the body of its dead chick for hours, refusing to leave. And one walks away from its colony straight toward death and never comes back. The same species, the same brain, no bigger than a walnut. So what is actually happening inside? In 2007, filmmaker Werner Herzog was shooting in Antarctica when one of the ecologists with him pointed toward a penguin walking alone, not toward the ocean, not toward the colony, toward the mountains. Herzog asked, "Where is it going?" The scientist answered, "Toward death. There's no food in that direction, no shelter, no way back. 70 kilometers from here is a range of frozen mountains, and no penguin that walks that way ever returns." They caught it, turned it back toward the sea, set it down. It kept walking toward the mountains. They tried again, then again. Each time, it turned around and kept going. Herzog watched for a moment, then said something he hadn't intended to say in a nature documentary. "There is something like madness happening here. To understand why that's more unsettling than it sounds, you need to know what penguins do when they lose something important." The BBC once filmed a scene that the crew described as the hardest moment to process in years of making nature documentaries. A penguin standing beside the body of its dead chick. It didn't eat, didn't move, just stood there head down, occasionally making a low, steady, drawn-out sound. Not a call to the colony, not an alarm, a sound that didn't match anything in the known behavioral repertoire of this species. That footage has been watched millions of times, not because it's beautiful, but because it looks like something we don't want to admit could exist in a bird. Science calls it bereavement behavior. The official definition is careful: a response to the sudden absence of a familiar individual expressed through behavioral changes and unusual vocalizations. That definition was written carefully to avoid using a different word. That word is grief. There's another behavior in penguins that most people don't know about, and once you understand it properly, it stops being cute. A male penguin chooses his mate with a pebble. That sounds simple, but here's what actually happens. The male spends days, sometimes weeks, searching for one. Not just any pebble. He examines each one, passes over hundreds that don't meet whatever standard he's measuring against. Too small passed over, too sharp passed over, surface not right passed over. When he finds the right one, he carries it to the female and places it in front of her. She looks at the pebble, then at him. If she accepts, they pair, usually for life. What does that mean? It means that male had criteria. He knew which pebbles weren't good enough. He compared, he decided, that's not simple instinct. Simple instinct doesn't distinguish one pebble from another. Something more complex is operating. And when that bird loses its mate, the one it carried the perfect pebble to some stop eating, some stand in the spot where their mate used to stand. For days, some don't find another mate until the following season. Some never do. For decades, the official answer to all of this was, it's just instinct. Bird brains are small, no developed cortex like mammals. What looks like emotion is really just a sequence of pre-programmed reflexes, no inner experience, no consciousness, no actual feeling. But neuroscience research over the last 20 years has started to break that assumption apart. It turns out bird brains have a different architecture, not shaped like a mammal's brain, but performing equivalent functions. The neurons are arranged differently, but connected in ways we're only beginning to recognize. Neuroscientists call it convergent evolution. Two different paths leading to the same destination. That doesn't mean penguins feel the way we feel, but it does mean the question of whether they feel anything at all, a question science once considered settled, is actually still open. Back to Werner Herzog's penguin. Scientists have theories. Disorientation, a malfunction in the navigational system. Illness, the abnormal behavior, a symptom of something happening in the brain, or simply a category of behavior we don't yet have a name for. No one knows for certain. But there's a small detail Herzog mentions that most people don't notice. Before it left the colony, the penguin stopped. It stood looking toward the ocean, toward the colony, toward everything its biology was designed to move toward. Then it turned around. We can call that illness. We can call it disorientation. We can call it a malfunction in the instinct. But remember, the penguin that spent weeks finding the right pebble, the one that stood beside its dead chick and wouldn't leave, same species, same brain, no bigger than a walnut. And we still don't know enough about that brain to say with certainty that the penguin standing at the edge of the colony looking toward the sea, then turning away, wasn't experiencing something real, something we don't have a name for, because we never thought we'd need one.